are smart enough, you will know who I am. But you are really not smart enough to know who I am. But soon you're gonna know who I am. Very easy.
Wow, very easy. The entitlement.
No, believe me, I'm much better than that.
The entitlement, guys. Wow.
All right, how do you like those apples? Pretty crazy, right? Yeah, here's the catch. We know who that is. We'll talk about that and more in a second. I want to say big shout out to everybody who came out to our communications conference in Provo, Utah. It was really cool to have ham radio experts, Josh Noss from Ham Radio Crash Course, also American Contingency's Ham Radio Network, and Radio Made Easy. It's _ Radio Made Easy on Instagram. I'll make sure I link it down below. He says, making it easy for you to use radios effectively. We offer turnkey off-grid communication solutions and training that you could find at radiomadeeasy.com. It's cool because they make kits that are pre-built out for all the things comm-wise and make it really easy. It was awesome because, man, most of you are not the subject matter expert. You don't focus your attention on things like radio comms. So I thought it was important to have experts across the board educate us all in all the things that's related to preparedness. So we just had the communications conference. In a while, we'll have the AI cyber security conference, as well as the Homestead conference, followed by the first aid conference. All these things will include subject matter experts teaching technical blocks of instruction and talking big picture on why it's important to be best prepared. Big shout out to Evan Hafer, former Special Forces 18 Echo, who came out as well and did a class on communications planning, which was really cool. Guys, I just came out of the field after a backcountry trip because I want to inspire you guys to get outside and detach a little bit. I think that's the balance that we need most significantly, is just to disconnect from social media, from our cell phones, from the world, and get in the backcountry. So I did a ASMR video. And I know a lot of you are thinking what I'm thinking. ASMR, it's like that kind of ASMR? Yeah, that kind of ASMR, except the medium isn't my mouth. I actually shut my mouth in these episodes. I don't say anything, which is really awesome. And awesome for you guys as well. But I'm completely quiet, and I'm outdoors doing my thing, and I'm camping. Nothing exceptional. I'm not trying to teach you how to live a primitive life in the backcountry. I'm just living my best life. So I had a profound opportunity to do that. It's going to be featured on Fieldcraft Survival's channel on February 1st, but I want to get you excited about it because I want you to be inspired by my ASMR to go, you know what? I like what he's doing. I'm going to pack my pack and go out in the backcountry and do the same. So hope to inspire you. Hope you guys check it out and give it a chance. I also got to use this little guy. I pretty much abused the hell out of this by Montana Knife. This is a Montana hatchet. It should be MHC, Josh Smith, Montana Hatchet Company. They do make these hatchets. They are very limited. I got the opportunity to get one. I know I'm just bragging right there. I apologize. You guys can also get a lot of knives that are in stock that typically aren't in stock at montanaknifecompany.com. Also, make sure you use MF10. That's Mike Foxtrot 10, MF10, and you'll save 10% at checkout. I appreciate you guys. So let's get on with it. Guys, when I saw this video, it blew my mind because I'm like, there's no way. There's no way they're interviewing this guy, and this guy's basically deaf to America. I mean, he doesn't say that exactly. You saw the video, but he's literally saying, you'll find out who I am. You'll find out who I am. Now, at the same time, I felt like, maybe a little prejudice here. But the dude's breaking the law because he's illegally crossing into the country. We'll get into the Texas argument here in a second. But I wanted to do a little bit more research because I was perplexed. I'm like, is this even real? They're interviewing this guy who just illegally crossed the border, which appears to be with his family. And he's saying things like, yeah, you'll find out who I am. You're not smart enough to know who I am. You'll find out soon enough. What? The arrogance on you. You just illegally crossed. Well, I guess if you're illegally crossing and there's no ramifications, you build a little ego. You get a little arrogant. You'll get a little cocky. It's like the Chinese illegal immigrants that were complaining that they were left out into the cold too long. What? Which is why I like the state of Texas position. But let me walk you through a little bit about this guy named Mavsum. This is the guy's name. Mavsum Samadov. Now, I'm sorry, Mavsum, if I'm hacking your name. It's the only way I know how to read it is phonetically. But here's the catch with this dude. So, according to Jack Lombardi II on social, so this guy, Mavsov Samadov, he's the head of the Islamic Party of Azerbaijan. It's a country right above Iran on the Caspian Sea. Beautiful country, by the way. He faced imprisonment following his criticism of the country's religious freedom conditions and its political activities. On January 7th, 2011, he was arrested by authorities during a traffic stop. He was then initially charged with failing to comply with a lawful police order, I imagine related to the traffic stop. This arrest occurred shortly after a January 2nd speech where Samadov openly criticized the president of Azerbaijan, particularly over the ban of wearing religious headscarves in schools, among other things. October 7th of 2011, the Baku Grave Crimes Court, which is the capital city of Azerbaijan, sentenced Samadov to 12 years in prison. Then on January 19th, 2023, Samadov was released after completing his sentence. January 19th, guys. And where does this dude turn up? A year later. On the border of our country, crossing into our country illegally, literally stating, if you are smart enough, you will know who I am. But you really aren't smart enough to know who I am. But soon, you're going to know who I am. Very soon. Come on, man. Get out of here. The Post-Millennial reported that the unidentified illegal immigrant was part of a group of individuals who had just crossed illegally over the southern border in the United States. Now, here's the overall arching issue for most Americans. The majority of Americans as polled. There is no porous border. It's an open border, which is why the state of Texas, via the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and also their state constitution, is protecting their own border on their own. They decided at Eagle Pass, which is basically middle of Texas on the border, very bottom of the state, decided on their own accord to lay concertina wire, call in the National Guard, which is the Texas militia, and lock things down. Except, just recently, the Supreme Court, in an unprecedented fashion, decided 5-4 to allow the federal government through the Border Patrol to come in and cut that concertina wire to allow them to patrol the border and also escort illegal migrants into this country illegally and release them, because it's catch and release, which is the big issue, which is why the state of Texas, on their own accord, is saying, we are no longer going to accept this reality. We are locking it down. We're going to arrest you if you come into this country illegally, as you should be arrested, and you're either going to jail or, if you want, you can go back to your country of origin even. Now we're pushing them back into Mexico, and maybe Mexico can deal with their own immigrant issue. So the position here for American people is they feel like, man, there's a lot of people coming across illegally and they're being released, and we don't even know who these people are or why they're here, including Chinese, Iranian, and this dude, an activist who was arrested for terrorism. See, his charges weren't related to religious prosecution, but terrorism, preparing a crime, preparing terrorism committed on preliminary arrangement by group of persons, by organized group or criminal community, preparing terrorism committed with application of firearms or subjects used as a weapon, illegally purchasing, transferring, selling, storing, transporting and carrying firearms, accessories, supplies, and explosives committing by organized group, and actions directed on violent capture power or violent deduction power. All this as referenced by the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, according to his profile. He was charged with these things as being a terrorist. Okay, all right, Samadov, get out of here. All right, so a huge issue. And the bottom line is this country needs to get off its ass and do something about it. I hear a lot of people talking about these things, but nobody's doing it except Texas. Texas is getting it done. When they actually said, you will no longer be allowed to have concertina wire up. They said, go pound sand. And then when they said the Supreme Court just weighed 5-4 that we are allowed to come here and cut it, they said, we'll replace it because it's ongoing litigation, which it is. It's ongoing. They said in the interim, you can go in there and cut so you get patrol. And they're saying, no, we're going to continue to lay concertina wire because you're just allowing these people to come in and you're releasing them with no charges, with a court date for years out. And that's not going to work for Texas. And it shouldn't work for Americans. I think the issue here is a lot of Americans aren't impacted with what's going on in the country in Texas, on the Mexican border, or in Chicago, or in New York City now, or Los Angeles. They're just not affected. You're disaffected. You're kind of away from that, and you just see and hear about it on the news. But we are so tied up in foreign wars and conflict. We're committing to Israel, which I don't think we should fund any of Israel's campaign. But they can handle themselves. Today, a plane crashed, supposedly shot down by the Ukrainians, because it was a Russian plane. Except there were 64 prisoners of war from Ukraine on that plane. And you know who funded that attack on that plane? You did. And so did I, because we're taxpayers. This is what's happening in our country. We are so focused, haphazardly, by the way, on every single thing that's going on outside of our borders that we have no freaking clue what's going on inside of our borders. The Black Swan attack that you're thinking about, all those illegal immigrants that are being released. Sure, I buy into the idea that the majority of those that come into this country want a better life. I know I would want that. But I also buy into the idea of the greatest analogy I was told was by Sheriff Mark Lamb, who's running for Senate in Arizona, that you should vote for, of Pinal County. And he said to me, Mike, let me put it this way. If you're an activist because you believe that we should have an open border, and 10 migrants came across illegally into this country, and you were offered for those 10 migrants to live in your house, knowing that, I don't know, 1 out of 10 are rapists, murderers, child molesters, terrorists, would you allow those 10 people to stay in your home overnight with your children? The answer unequivocally is hell to the no. So I want you to think about that, because a small conversion rate of a large number is a large conversion. And so even if a small percentage of those millions, 11 plus million that are in this country illegally with no tracking, no record, besides a reference on an Excel spreadsheet, if a small percentage of them are willing and able, via foreign adversary, a deliberate attack, because they've been incentivized or directed to conduct an attack on this country, that's scary. That's the Black Swan attack. And you know who's going to deal with that mess? The next president. I hope it's the next version of this, because we can't afford another term of this. We can't afford another day of this, let alone another term of this. So what can you do about it? Well, I'll talk about that in the underground on Patreon. A lot of these things I can't talk about. Big shout out to my Patreon supporters who support my channel. I'll link it down below, patreon.com/Mike Glover. But also you can get involved at AmericanContingency.com. We're getting more involved in politics this year with American Contingency because I think it's proper. You should know what's going on in your own backyard. You should know the election process. You should know the U.S. Constitution front to back. And then you should get off your ass and do something about it. We need to prepare because we need to organize to be contingencies for our families and our communities if no one comes to save us. Because think about it. On October 7th in Israel, did anybody come to save anybody? No. The first responders came in 7 hours. No, there was no first responders. Those were evidence collectors. That's what they were. So we should take this very seriously, because if this country is overwhelmed more so than it is right now, we are in harm's way. And you as individual citizens in individual pockets of tribes and communities can fend for yourselves. Or can you, is the question. Guys, I appreciate you. Until next time, I'm off to the underground. Peace out, guys.